I'm back. Did you miss me? All right. Lock and loaded. All right. So I kind of want to do the Genesis 9. Get back to our Genesis reading. Let's see here. Let's see. What did we talk about last time? With Noah, we saw the seed of the kingdom. Again, I love going back to that verse 4 on chapter 8, and I also love going back, I believe, on verse 11 on chapter 7. If you look at verse 11 on chapter 7, 17th day of the month, second month, the very springs of the great deep burst open, the windows of heaven were open. I believe that is reference to, in the sense of the Lord and resurrection, but not yet in full. And that's not until the beginning of verse 4, or starting with verse 4, with the life and resurrection, which will still be part 3. The ark came to rest. Remember, Noah's name means rest. The ark came to rest on the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. Now, this is the 17th day, also mentioned there in verse 11, chapter 7. When we compare these both, chapter 7, verse 11 is the resurrection. The ascension is here is the rest in the 7th month. The 2nd month was the testimony of resurrection. The 7th month is the completion of resurrection, which is his ascension. It was on the 17th day of the month. You go, wait a minute, John. I thought he didn't ascend till 40 days after his resurrection. Well, remember, in the Gospel of John, it reveals to us there is a secret resurrection. Do not touch me, Mary. I have not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brothers and say to them, I ascend to my God and your God. Right, my Father, your Father. Okay. That will be the secret resurrection. So the secret resurrection is here in verse 4, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat, that is descending. Till when? And the waters diminished steadily until the 10th month. Now remember, it was 10 days after the Lord ascended on the 50th day, Pentecost. So from 7 to 10 is not just completion, but it is fullness. And that is the Feast of Weeks, Feast of Pentecost, Feast of Harvest, whatever you want to call it. And the 10th month of fullness. And the 10th month, the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. The tops of the mountains are the kingdom of the heavens. Tops. Heavens. Tops. So the first day of the month, the kingdom of the heavens begins. And we will see, as we see, when we go through Matthew, this is the situation. Rock and roll. All right. We also saw a matter of the seed of the kingdom when it comes to verses 13 through 19 of chapter 8. We have on the 601st year of the first month, which is, in a sense, man's been on earth for 6,000 years. In a sense, the kingdom is 1,000 years. I don't like to say that. Brother Lee never like to say that, just for the sake of we don't know when the Lord's coming. But we have been on this earth for about 6,000 years. There's another 1,000 years, so it makes it 7,000 years. So on the 601st year in the first month, this is after all the judgment of fallen man, except for the Gog and Magog at the end of the kingdom. But the man who fell on 6, right in the first month, first day of the month, the earth was dried up. Noah removed the covering of his ark and saw now that the surface of the ground was dry. In other words, the great tribulation is over. Surface of the ground, the judgment upon the world that the God has set aside for the last 3.5 years of this age, the great tribulation. Now, in the 2nd month, a new moon, right? A new age, dispensation. You can think of moons as dispensations, and you can think of the sun as the entirety of creation, or at least the entirety of the age. We're in the night, but the morning star is rising. You can think of that, but the moon is different dispensations, especially with the law, and this in Revelation 12, the law underneath her feet, and that being the matter of the law, dispensational law. Now, in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry, 27. Well, we pointed this out. It is 9 times 3. It is 10 plus 17. The 17th day, the 27th day, 10 10 is always a matter of fullness, but also fullness in the matter of a measure of the dispensation, right? So at the end of this dispensation, the 10 plus the 17, which started with the Lord's resurrection, sacred ascension, plus 10, this is the age, will be the 27. Also, we saw that 27 is what? A perfect cube. The only other perfect cube before that, besides 1, which is the one God, he's the perfect cube, is 8, which is 2 times 2 times 2. 27 is 3 times 3 times 3. So the cubes in the Bible are the Holy of Holies, as we see in 10 by 10, in the tabernacle 20 by 20 by 20, in the temple, and 12,000, in the New Jerusalem, which is also a sign of our mingled spirit, but is also a matter of the kingdom. The New Jerusalem actually is not yet, when we say New Jerusalem, referring to the consummation, referring to the new heaven, new earth, and eternity, the New Jerusalem in the millennial kingdom is this matter of the redeemed and glorified tripartite elect, and there's the heavenly co-kings of his kingdom, and the saved remnant of Jews who are transferred to the messianic earthly kingdom there in the tabernacle of David, teaching the nations how to live, behave, and walk. Okay? Well, where's the 8? The 8, like we said, and we mentioned in the previous video, was the reality of the kingdom. 27 is the manifestation of the kingdom, this cube, right? 27. All right. Now, what else did we see? Go from the, 27th day, the earth, 7th day of the month. On the second month, the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Now, remember, after the 600th year, he saw that the surface of the ground was dry. That's what he saw, you see. But when the earth was dry, that's manifestation. To see that the ground is dry, in a sense, that's seeing the reality of the kingdom. That the kingdom is here in reality, and it is in the church today, hidden within the believers. But the reality is there in their mingled spirit, the 27 cube, right? Now, with the 8 people of the ark, as seen here in verse 16. Now, verse 14, the earth was dry as the manifestation. And in the second month, on 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. So before then, remove the covering of the ark, right? And saw that now the surface of the ground was dry. Okay? So in a sense, the covering was there for God's judgment. In a sense, that's who Christ is our covering, as our Passover lamb, and the house that we are in, with the blood on the doorposts and the lintels for the passing over of the fallen angel, or the death angel, right? That is what the church is today. You can see that the surface of the ground is dry. In a sense, you can see that the judgment has been made on the cross. But the earth was dry is the actual manifestation of that reality, of that fact, that reality and fact. All right, verse 16. This is the other cube. 8, go from the ark, you and your wife, that's 2, and your sons, there's 3 of them, and your sons' wives with you. That's another 3, that's 8. Right, so the reality is 8, the manifestation is 27. Okay, a couple things. I know it's just been a minute here. That's why I kind of want to go through all this. We talked about swarming, things like that. I don't really want to get too much into that. And then, so the command to go forth is in verse 16, right? Verse 17 is the reconciliation of all things, bringing out with you every living thing that is with you, of all flesh, birds and cattle, and every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth, that they may swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. Now, this matter of swarming means that there's still God's judgment. Why would he tell these non-amphibious animals or non-marine animals who are in the water to swarm? There's still judgment. I can't even see this related with Gog and Magog at the end of the millennial kingdom. I mean, there's still the rebellion within man that still has to be instigated by Satan to expose the fallen man. But Satan's kept in the abyss for 1,000 years, right? He's thrown in the abyss. He's kept in a prison, and then he's released at the very end to instigate the last rebellion, mankind, Gog and Magog, in order that the Lord can consume them with a fire from heaven, and in an instant they'd be dried up. They'd be burned up, dried up. Yeah, well, they would be, but burned up, and then that will usher in the new heaven, new earth, and the eternity at the end, after the end of the millennial kingdom of time, bringing eternity, new heaven, new earth, and consummating New Jerusalem. Okay, so Noah built an altar to Jehovah. Now, this is also, we also mentioned how this was the first mention of an altar in the Bible. It is in relation to the redeemed earth. If you think about it, the saints under the altar and the fifth seal are also in relation to the burnt altar, which is under the earth. You know, the earth, the redeemed earth. The altar is in the place of the outer court, which signifies the redeemed earth for the kingdom, right? It is the outer court, redeemed by the white linens, which are the nations who are redeemed but do not have the scarlet, blue, and purple strands. Thus, they are not regenerated, but they are brought back before the state of Adam. And here is the altar where we can meet Jehovah, right? This altar will be the place, and since the altar signifies the redeemed earth, you see, it's a place where heaven and earth meet, and for the redemption, for our access into God, to be infused with him, to become one with him, for his proper corporate testimony of the triune God within the tripartite man. Now, Jehovah smelled the satisfying fragrance, and Jehovah said in his heart, I will. So then, here we have the one of the covenants. We will see these covenants again unfolded. We're at least through 2 covenants. One with the creation of man. Here we have another covenant after the flood. We will see these in the first 3 verses of chapter 18 in type. Pointing to that, hint, hint, we got some more stuff coming. Hallelujah. I will never again curse the ground on account of man. Never again curse the ground on account of man. Why? For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. In a sense, really, the Lord sees us really as sinners in the flesh, unintentionally, born this way. Okay? And never again will I smite every living as I have done. Right? Everything living as I have done. So it won't be with water, we know it will be with fire, and then that water and fire mingled together to consummate the judgment of God throughout all the dispensations and ages is the what? Lake of fire. Water, fire. Okay? He will never again smite the years of done, but through all the days that earth remains, seed, time, and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. So in a sense, because he sets up this balance, it preserves his righteousness and preserves the man who fell and has become flesh and whose thought in him is only evil continually, recognizing that's from his youth, he'll never do it again. But it's also pointing to the fact that there is a morning coming, there is a summer coming, there is a day coming. Because if it is night, if it is winter, if it is seed time, and there will be harvest coming, right? And the cold, there's always the opposite, and that's really what it is when it comes to the breaking of our man release of the spirit. That is what it is. This is the Christian life, and this is what our hope is set to be, because we are looking for that bright morning star rising up in our hearts. Okay, with that said, let's go to chapter 9. If anybody needs some oil for the electric razor, let me know. I got it. For days. All right. So what we'll do is we will just go ahead and read chapter 9. Then we will go verse by verse. I don't think we'll get through the whole thing today. We'll probably do 2 videos on chapter 9. It all just depends how the Spirit leads. But chapter 10, we're going to need some many here. I almost have it. But I'm going to go through the names, and the genealogy in chapter 10 will be not as mind-blowing as the chapter 5 one, only because I have about, again, 85 to 90% of the names. I don't have much of the nations, but we're going to be doing some digging. I will do my due diligence. I'm motivated, you know what I'm saying? And we will go through there, and we will see that these 3 sons represent the 3 groups of people that are in the kingdom. Because remember, we are still in this matter of the kingdom. The age has been turned. The flood has been sent. The ark is on the rest upon the mountains of Ararat. Noah and his family are now the rulers of co-kings of the world. Well, Noah is, and then his sons are with him. And this is also seen in the type of the fact of the establishment of human government, which we'll get into today. Okay? All right, praise the Lord. Un momento. Genesis chapter 9. Published by the Council of Carthage, AD 395. Written by Moses. Inspired by the Holy Spirit. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Wow. And the fear of you and the terror of you shall be upon every animal of the earth and upon every bird of heaven, on everything that creeps on the ground, and on all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Did I just spill coffee on my frickin' Bible? Lord Jesus. What a mess. What a frickin' mess. I don't know what to do. Give me a sock. Give me a sock. These are gloves. Give me something. Hot dog, hot dog, hot dog. All right. It was only on the leather. That's why they're leather bounded, so they protect. from coffee spills. All right, where were we? Into your hand they are delivered. We're not doing that. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you, just as I have gave you the green herb. Wow, it doesn't say the herb, but the green herb. So I have given you everything. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you, just as I give you green herb, so I've given you everything. But flesh with its life, that is its blood, you shall not eat. Wow. Verse 5. And indeed your lifeblood I will require. From every animal I will require it. And from every man's brother, I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God he made man. And you, be fruitful and multiply, abound on the earth and multiply in it. Then God spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And I myself now establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and with every living animal that is with you, the birds, the cattle, and every animal of the earth with you, of all that came out of the ark, every animal of the earth. And I establish my covenant with you, that never again will all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. Hallelujah. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant which I am making between me and you, and every living animal that is with you, for perpetual generations. It's like royalties in perpetuity. It's Mr. Wonderful's favorite. I set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. And when I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant which is between me and you, and every living animal of all flesh. And never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow will be in the clouds, and I will look upon it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living animal of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. It's in the clouds. I like that. Now the sons of Noah who came forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was spread over. And Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and became drunk. And he uncovered himself inside his tent. Wow. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders. And they walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were turned backward so that they did not see their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine and learned what his younger son had done to him. Wow. And he said, Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. Wow. And he said, Blessed be Jehovah, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servants. And may God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. And all the days of Noah were 950 years. And he died. Wow. I was actually looking for the part where he cursed him for the skin, but I don't know if it says it, but wow. All right. Interesting. Okay, so let's go. I think it's actually understood by tradition. He said, "Cursed be Canaan, servant shall he be." Wow. Wow. Servant of servants. Okay, I don't want to get too much into that. Well, I'm going to relook that up. But I think what we're doing is the first half of chapter 9 here. Okay, verse 1. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." Now, this is a re-mention of, I believe, Genesis 1:26 of 28. Now remember, Genesis 1:28, this is before the fall. And before the fall, God wanted man to multiply. He wanted to fill the earth and subdue it. But when man partook of the other tree, God had to cast him out of the garden. He put up a flaming cherubim with a flaming sword, right? To guard the way of the tree, because he didn't want man to eat the tree of life and live forever. Well, man in his fallen condition, and as we approach here, we are entering another age. In his fallen condition, was to live only according to his conscience, which resulted in man multiplying where? Filling the earth? No, on the surface of the earth, as we see in the beginning of chapter 6. This is the fallen man that God does not want to multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Here we have another blessing, because here God was able to turn the age. The reason the kingdom is not here in its manifestations, there's still men here on the surface of the earth, and God's covenant to multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, especially when it comes to the nations, especially because they are under the curse of the fact that Eve, remember, childbearing became painful. Well, one of the blessings that brought to the nations, because they are not in the resurrection, in the resurrection, which is the Kohanim and the saved remnant of Israel, they will not be marrying or giving in marriage, and thus no need to be multiplied. But the nations they will have that reverse curse of the of childbearing and being fruitful and multiplying. We will see this in full, I believe, in Genesis 20. I can't seem to get out of any verse in Genesis 20 without seeing this matter of the nations, and with Abimelech. Now, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. You think about it, fill the earth. Fill the earth. You realize, on the one hand, we are, man, when his mind's set on flesh, he just thinks that he is an item that's on the surface. He doesn't realize that he is actually part of this earth. What he eats, what he takes, dust to dust, but especially what would fill the earth. When we think about what man is, made from the dust of the ground, and the earth is sort of a container for man, who is made from the earth, and this is a I don't really know where I'm going with that, but you see, fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. Fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. Interesting. Could be triune God, fruitful spirit, multiply the Son, right? Christ is his model, we should be multiplied. And then fill the earth is a matter of perhaps the Father as the source of not only the believers and their life and divine nature, but also in creation, in the matter of the creating God, the Elohim, something like that. So somewhat of a triune God there, second half of verse 1. Now, verse 2, "In the fear of you, and the terror of you, shall be upon every animal of the earth, and upon every bird of heaven, and everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Now, the fear of you and the terror of you is also a matter of dominion, and it's a matter of God reclaiming the earth. The only thing to fear is God himself. Now, remember, this is also, although a type pointing to the kingdom, this is also an experience today. Now, our brother points out, even the mosquitoes aren't even subject to us, but we do realize that the fear of every animal is upon us. I mean, this is a matter of the kingdom. Although we do see there's rebellion among the animals and upon man, but here we have sort of a preservation here. And now, if you go to Isaiah 61, I believe, when we talk about the lion lying down with a lamb or something, I think there's a matter of order there, but proper fear, the fear of you and the terror should be on every animal on the earth and every bird of heaven and everything that creeps on the ground. Compare this with the eternal gospel preached to the nations. Fear God, in a sense, man representing God and made in his image, has all the earth subject to him, fearing him. Terror, right? You realize there's something that God's preparing for, and that is going to be human government. He's preparing for man not only to have a proper ordination of the earth, at least as far as fear is concerned. Just because you fear doesn't mean you're not rebellious. You may have fear, but it doesn't mean you're not rebellious. Just like the animals, they fear us, but they're not very rebellious, like mosquitoes bite us. But every animal, every bird of heaven, everything creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea into your hand they deliver. Now think about this. Every animal of the earth, and since that's all the nations, every bird of heaven, that includes the fallen angels in the sense, dominion. Everything that creeps on the ground, that's the demonic spirits. We've got the fallen angels in heaven, we've got the demons here creeping on the ground, and all the fish of the sea, as fallen man. It doesn't say the cattle. It doesn't say, it doesn't have the eagle. It doesn't, it's a mention of negative aspects of the creation, the fish. I mean, I only say that because the fish are in the sea, representing fallen man, where the demons reside, and the birds of heaven, signifying the fallen angels, as long as the good angels, and the creeping things we see out with the serpent, and to your hand they are delivered. So since this is the redeemed earth, this is where the kingdom, this is a matter of the kingdom and its exercise, perhaps. All right. Now, let's kick to verse 3. Probably need to do a little more there in verse 2, but we'll go to verse 3. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. This is a matter of redemption. Every moving thing that lives. Notice the plant life isn't really a moving thing. Now remember, beforehand, this is what in Genesis 1:29, every green herb, or verse 30, every green herb is food. So man only ate plants. Now he's eating animals, and animals always signify the redeeming life. So this is a matter of redemption, the redeemed earth. It shall be what? Food for you. The proper redeemed earth is the earth that is for the existence of man, who is made in God's image for his expression and representation of the triune God within humanity in this universe. So now we have every food. Now man begins to eat animals. And it's not just a matter of worshiping God, serving God, as far as what Abel did when he followed his parents in the matter of needing coats of skin. He was a tender of sheep following the way of salvation. This is now nothing necessarily an objective righteousness. This is now a subjective righteousness, a subjective redemption. I don't want to say subjective redemption, but a redemption to the full of our bodies. So on the one hand, we are redeemed from the eternal perdition, from the lake of fire. On the other hand, our physical body also needs to be redeemed. And that physical body being redeemed is in absolute correlation and at a moment of the redeemed earth. Think of our bodies made from the earth. Once our body is redeemed, the earth is redeemed. These are two things that coincide. So when I say redeeming the earth or the redemption of our bodies, as seen in Romans 8:23, I'm referring to the same thing here. Okay? It's key when we get to the vocabulary here, because these three groups of people, I'm telling you, as we go through these next 10 to 15 chapters of Genesis especially, we will see we need names for these three groups of people. Nations, remnant of Israel, the church, believers, co-kings, okay? Heaven, earth, people are surrounding the earth, okay? Just as I have given you every green herb, so I have given you everything. Now, we do know eventually, though, the Lord did select Abraham, and through Isaac and Jacob and the 12 tribes of Israel, established a dietary regulation concerning what we should and should not eat. And we've seen in Leviticus chapter 11. No divided hoof, no chewing cud, do not touch it. There's no hinges on the insect, do not eat it. Okay? Well, that was a picture showing the difference in the fellowship between the Jews and the Gentiles, especially, and for God to have a specific people. But ultimately, according to Ephesians 2:15 and Colossians 2:14, these ordinances have been abolished and we have been brought back to the beginning. Not just the beginning, but the kingdom that was set up with Noah. Now, if you think about it, in the kingdom, though, there won't be the shedding of blood because there's no need of further redemption. So when it says the lion will lay down with the lamb, I gotta find that verse. Man, I can't believe I did do my due diligence here, but there will not be that need of the shedding of blood. Here we're about to get into some verses here of the reason why. Because verse 4, let's go to verse 4, it says, and notice it said every green herb. It doesn't say every herb. Every green herb. I've given you everything. Okay. So now man begins to eat animals, which always points to the matter of Abel and why he was even a tender of sheep when man didn't even eat animals at that time. Because he took God's way of salvation. He wasn't here on the earth for him. He was not here for that. He realized the earth was vanity by his name Abel and was able to be a tender of sheep and take the way of God's salvation received through his parents and they're believing in him named Eve. Adam and Eve become the first believer in the gospel for the seed of woman to bruise the serpent's head. But that is still a prophecy or a gospel that still has yet to be fulfilled because the seed of woman ultimately is not Noah. It is the Lord Jesus. Born of the woman, born under law, as we see in Galatians. Okay, verse 4. But flesh with its life, that is its blood, you shall not eat. Why? That's not your portion. Also a type of the fact that Christ's blood is the only blood that should ever be applied to us. It's the most precious blood. It's the blood that's required for all of us to pay for our debts. Why? Well, verse 5, it says, and indeed, your lifeblood I will require. Remember, God is bound by one attribute, righteousness. Your lifeblood I will require. From every animal I will require it. So in a sense, there's a redemption, but because it's not a redemption in full, there is the need of eye for eye, tooth for tooth. I require your blood. You can't have that. That's my portion. And from every man's brother, I require the life of man. Our life is not ours. Hank down the street or Jim or whatever, your neighbors. That's not yours. It's the Lord's. He's the one who has required the lifeblood because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and the wages of sin is death. This is in Romans 3:23. Let's see here. Lifeblood required from every animal, from every man's brother. I will require the life of the man. And notice, from every man and from every man's brother. This goes back to the murdering, the violence, the first instance of violence and murder with Cain and Abel. All Abel's blood still speaks, and there's a matter of the promised redemption. There is a need for the requirement of the lifeblood of every man and every man's brother, because violence filled the earth before the flood. What am I getting at? We are getting to the third dispensation of the Bible. By dispensation, I mean the way God has deals with man according to a specific age in a specific dispensation. Well, beforehand, we had two ages. What is it? The age of innocence, which is before the fall, and God dealt with man in that way. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth to do it. Then we have the age of the conscience, which has happened with the beginning of Adam and Eve. Their eyes were open, and they lived according to conscience. But man still did not live according to conscience. Instead, filled the earth with violence. And Jehovah could not look at it anymore. And Jehovah God wanted to destroy the earth with a flood. Because all that life that was taken is the life that he required from a man. So what does he do now? Now we're entering the third dispensation, which is still a dispensation that has carried to today, which is the age of human government. Humans governing other humans. for the preservation of man, so that God can become a man and through death and resurrection be dispensed into man, for the producing and building up of the body of Christ, for the preparation of the bride to bring in his kingdom consummated to Jerusalem, there is a need of human government. All right. And that is with verse 6. What is human government? What's the best government? What's the system of government? Verse 6 of Genesis 9 is the government established by God. You know, libertarians like to talk about the limited government. And that's really what man's always trying to get to. We need a government. We're not anarchists. We have a constitution. What's the limit of government? When does government go beyond? Government's for one thing only, protect our freedom. And the way it protects that freedom is through the protection of each other, from violence, which includes life and possessions. So what the Constitution of the United States is really trying to get at was, let's go back to the way government is established according to the nature of things. This is an ordination from God. All right, so verse 6, here it is. Whoever sheds man's blood, that's not yours, that's required by God, that's violence, sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. That man means that is by man shall his blood be shed. That man is a deputy authority. That man is a governmental authority. We see that Paul even prayed for the peace among the governments of the world, or the politics. And we see in Romans 13 that every authority is actually set up by God himself. And this all goes back to Genesis 9:6. Government is a restriction to our fallen flesh, because ultimately when the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other, okay? And we need man to protect man from man. So this is a limited government. No, the government was not established so that we could all have free healthcare, free education, free this and free that, and free, government take care of you, cradle the grave. Government has responsibility. People have responsibility. This room, this ceiling, this floor doesn't have responsibility. People have responsibility. But the government of the people, for the people, and by the people means that the government exists for the protection of the freedom of individual liberty. So this is ultimately where we will be getting back to. I think ultimately, by nature, we will get back to this. Genesis 9:6. I believe that this is fulfillment of prophecy in the times to come. Once communication and knowledge, people realize, wow, central planning does not work. Free market is, although not the best system, it's by far the best. It's not a perfect system, but it's by far the best we've ever come across, which is we are allowing man to have one ingredient: freedom. You are free to do whatever you like on this earth, as long as you affect the freedom of somebody else. That's life. That's liberty. And here is the pursuit of happiness, which is in verse 7. You be fruitful, multiply, abound on the earth, and multiply in it. So we have life, which is the beginning of verse 6. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. In the image of God, he made man. In a sense, that's kind of why we believe not only just in life, but also in liberty. God not only created us, but he's given us the liberty to move about on this earth. Why? Because we're made in his image. When you see a human being, you cannot just see a fallen human being. You need to see this matter of, this is a man, a human being who is made in the image of God. Life, 6a, liberty, 6b, and then pursuit of happiness in verse 7. And you, be fruitful, multiply, abound on the earth, and multiply in it. Although the founders give us the pursuit of happiness, ultimately that's encapsulated in one thing: marriage and begetting, right? That's really what man is here for. This is what the pursuit of happiness is. In whatever shape, way, or form, although the founders didn't label it like that, they saw that this is what man wants. The only thing that's going to make man happy is to be one with God and fulfilling his commission here on the earth. And although nothing should be forced, the only enforcement should be the protection of violence from individuals. I think with YouTube, I think with the internet, I think with communication and truth, starting even with not only the Gutenberg printing press, but even through Adam Smith and Milton Friedman in the 20th century, and we are beginning to realize you have to be as crazy as all get out to even think that central planning is a good idea. Something that the government is now going to take care of other human beings. If anybody who has a need, by man shall that need be supplied. Well, eventually, as believers who have no self, there is this matter of communism actually being successful arrangement on earth, as we see in the initial church life there in Acts 2. But the only reason that was able to, where they all had all things common, right? It's communism, is because there was no self. But because man is completely in the self, and his body is now the flesh, and his spirit is dead in contacting God, there is a need for the maintaining of existence. He's gone through 3 falls. There's still a 4th fall. The next 2 chapters after this, after the establishment of human government, but yet a dead spirit, a soul that's self, and a flesh that's and a body that's flesh. This man, under this human government, this limited government, and through the one language, which is really what technology leads us to, is a matter of one language, speaking to each other through free trade, will be able to accomplish anything his heart desires or purposes, including building a tower as one, a corporate man, like a flock of geese, a flock of birds, a school of fish. Here is a school or flock of fallen human beings under a human government established by God, a free trade and a limited government only to protect us from violence. The founders saw this, but perhaps they weren't the original ones who thought this, because this is something set up here all the way back in Genesis chapter 9. You will be able to build a tower to reach the heavens. The only way it can be stopped is through the disruption of communication. Because remember, if you can think it, you can do it. Man has this capacity. Man has this capacity to burn the earth, make bricks, and reach the heavens. To fulfill Satan's intention of Isaiah 14, in which he injected himself into man as sin, and through sin death, and now he is in man, working in man, and now man is about to head to a corporate rebellion. We'll get to this, though, 2 chapters from now, to build the Tower of Babel. So the more free trade is, notice the towers are getting higher and higher. Where are the towers high, and where are the most of them? Well, there is New York City and Manhattan, the Wall Street, signifying the free trade, the economy of the earth, but also Hong Kong. If you look at Hong Kong 50 years, 60 years ago, mud huts, no natural resources, under even a communist China, up into imperial, it wasn't communist China until the late 90s, but under Britain, monarchy, imperial Britain, but yet they left them alone, gave them the freedom. What they did is they imposed rule of law. Now, I want to get to this matter, human government being verse 6, but rule of law being there's a mark on Cain. There is a mark on Cain. There is a rule to the law, and so their law is like the law of gravity, but according to that law, there's rules that have been set up. Well, one of the rules is there's a mark on Cain. If anybody strikes Cain, sevenfold the vengeance. Well, that rule was broken, so now it needs to be enforced, because man violence filled the earth, it became Nephilim. That's enforced here with human government, right? So the human government is there to enforce the rule of law. All of this is for what? A political agenda that I'm trying to promote? No, this is just to show you the existence of man today and the preservation of man today based upon the rule of law and the human ordained government. Now, does that mean we need to build a tower? No, but we're in it. We're building a tower. You're in the world. You're building it. But what's crazy about everybody building that tower is, you know what? You'll never become God in life and nature. You may become like God, right? Ascending to the throne, but you never become God, because God created you. You are still in vanity. You are still in yourself. You are still in the flesh. You're just under human government to maintain your existence for the gospel, for the seed of woman, seed of Abraham, seed of David, the seed of humanity, as a fulfillment of all the promises and types and pictures and shadows throughout the Old Testament and today in its reality as a spirit. He is indwelling us, saturating us, permeating us if we allow him, by turning our hearts and keeping our hearts turn to the Lord and living in the index of his eye, to be infused with his glory in the face of Jesus Christ, so that we become exactly the same as he is in life and nature, but not in the Godhead, for his corporate expression and testimony in the universe. God's made in Jerusalem. All right, so that will do our reading today. We'll do the first 7 verses here. I kind of just wanted to tie in this matter of human government. Now human government is established. Keep this in mind. And if you can see that, you will see the nature of man. The definition of economics is the study of human behavior or a particular price of good or service, okay? And that price system will be used for man, because it hits the self, but at the same time, man, according to their own self-interest, are working together to build a tower. I recommend Milton Friedman's video, The Power of the Market, on the pencil. There is not one person on the earth who can make a pencil, believe it or not, that actually can't. If you go through the items of the pencil with the wood, you needed to cut down a tree. In order to cut down a tree, you needed steel. In order to get steel, you needed iron ore. Then you needed to ship the pencil. Then you got to get to the retail place, and there's got to be a cashier, somebody who can sell the pencil to you. And it's all for a price. Everybody has their self-interest, but they're working together as one, supposedly. Now, it's a fake oneness. It's a oneness that does create peace. And this is how you create world peace. Free trade will create world peace. We don't go to war with Canada because we trade with them. The ones that we're at the war most, the ones that we are at the height the most, are the ones that we have trouble with the trade. Because trade and money do not care about race. They don't care about culture. They don't care about language. They speak one language, and that's money. That is the language that is being spoken here in Babel. Money. And capitalism is a game of giving. Whoever gives the most wins. Why does Apple have high profits? Well, do you have an iPhone? That's what I'm looking at right now. How much has it affected humanity? How much have you helped out your fellow man? Then you win. Because our founders realized everybody's for themselves. This is all just one big self. But how can I get all these selves to work together as one? Well, you may go, well, there you go, John. You got world peace. Well, in a sense, yeah, that's world peace. But in another sense, the Lord said, when they say peace and security, head for the hills. So the higher the towers get, the more man is one. And believe me, we have just seen the beginning of free trade, not only just in this country, but around the world in the global markets. The higher the towers get, the more we will see that this age is coming to an end. This is the mixture of clay with iron, iron being a democracy and clay being autocracy, I believe is what it was, and the iron taking over the clay. You realize it's a matter of the centralization of power. Before 1776, with the Declaration of Independence, government was set up as central planning. Power was more to one person. Now, since 1776, or at least with this country and its birth, 250 years later, as we are approaching it, we realize this is a matter of the iron taking over the clay, or something. I think it's the opposite or something. And what the Romans brought with the balance of government power to where it goes more to the individual. Here we are. And so this country is primed for not only for the beacon of hope and truth concerning individualism and our Constitution and free markets and liberty and life and pursuit of happiness, but also for the gospel, because we realize, yes, we are in the middle of man 666, which is coming up. Man can do it. Humanism, all right? Watch The Wizard of Oz. It's what it's all about. You know, you don't need God to give you got courage this whole time. You kind of thing, you know. So anyways, there we go. I'm going to end it there. So this will be on Genesis chapter 9, verses 1 through 7. The age of human government begins. And other than that, make sure you vote for your politician to give you all the good stuff of Social Security and health care. And we got to be the police around the world. And, no, this is actually not what our founders intended for our government. They just wanted this matter of the protection from each other. So anyways, we've come a long ways from there, and hopefully when this truth of this matter, I think, is going to get more and more out, I think there's just no way you can go backwards. Once people realize the government's not there to take care of you from cradle to the grave, once people recognize individual liberty, free markets and trade and libertarianism, they'll say, well, actually, I believe this all along. So the right and the left is actually, I'm going right from the pendulum, I'm going left from the pendulum, and the pendulum is freedom. That's why the libertarians, in a sense, are that third party. They are the center pendulum. But when you have entitlements and you have those in pandering and crony capitalism, you are a politician for the votes. Well, that vote is happening because of the ignorance of the people. So it is very important we get the truth out there more and more. I think that's just what's happening. I mean, 20 years ago, if I talked to one of my fellow people, they couldn't understand what a free market was. He said, no, government needs to take care, wipe your butt, and then, blow your nose and get your free education. But I think through the government failures we are seeing, no, absolutely not. We need to go back to the way God ordained government, which is you're free to do whatever you want to do with your life. And it is your life. and you have the pursuit of happiness, past, life, present, liberty, future, pursuit of happiness, as long as you don't affect somebody else. If that's the case, then we as government, other people, for the people, by the people, has to step in. A third party has to step in and say, no, you cannot murder. No, you cannot rape. No, you cannot steal. No, you cannot. Hey. All right. Well, praise the Lord. Other than that, I think we're going to end it there. And I should be able to do another video. I'm still thinking about it. But I'm glad to be back. And I hope you all had a great weekend. And that will do it for our Genesis reading. And I'm a puppet. Bye-bye. Praise the Lord.